Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, here is a quote. Another thing, of course, is life will have terrible blows, horrible blows, unfair blows. Doesn't matter. And some people recover and others don't. And there, I think the attitude of Epictetus is the best. He thought that every mischance in life was an opportunity to behave well. Every mischance in life was an opportunity to learn something, and your duty was not to be submerged in self pity, but to utilize the terrible blow in a constructive fashion. That is a very good idea.
Hmm.
Charlie Munger.
Oh,
Our guest today is alive, and the quote is someone that is now deceased. Our guest is isn't 1/10 the man of the quote. However, I have a personal relationship with our guest and I love them dearly. And if they died tomorrow, I would be more upset than I am of who I just read this quote, who was one of my idols that I never got to meet. So, of course, the next best thing is to do a podcast at 4 a.m. the next day with the one, the only Andrew Berman, mentor, friend, self improving connoisseur, one hell of a guy. Thanks for coming back to the podcast, brother.
thank you for having me. So, I'm curious. Like, what did you feel like when you heard the passing of Charlie Munger? Yes, I mean, I know as someone who's very dedicated to Munger and you know Warren and as someone who's been to the shareholder meeting, you've experienced it. So what was that? What did that feel like?
It was terrible.
Really interesting. Why is that? Why actually? I mean, because all of everything that you have, everything, all of his wisdoms that he's passed to you, his personality is, there is hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of recordings of the shareholder meetings, like. But why did that feel horrible?
It was like losing a relative.
Yeah,
I'm, you know, well, there's what happened, and then there's the diagnosis, right? It's like, wow, I was really upset.
yeah,
Maybe part of it is what he represented,
yeah.
all us Mungerites.
What is a Mungerite? Interesting. I mean, I can imagine what a Mungerite, what the meaning of that would be, but like what what does it take to be a card holding Mungerite?
This is good. Buy more books than you can read. Pester people like you're their conscience.
Hmm.
Don't hold back. Pursue radical self transformation. Wear glasses.
Where are my glasses?
Dance to your own musical note. Have partners, business partners. Assume the full un unhindered pursuit of the advisor.
Hmm.
Munger was he was the true advisor in the best sense of the word. He helped Warren shape their entire business. He was Berkshire in a lot of ways. And now
Interesting.
he's graduated. I'd like to think that he's fighting an interstellar war against the Nazgoths. And that's what he's up to right now. At level 99, beyond space time.
Yeah.
Start back at one. All those books, all those insights. He got like, seventh general rank up there or out there in the ether. But those are some of the things that come to mind. Dancing to your own tune, reading voraciously. We're talking about a guy that would finish something to the effect of 500 books a year. It's a monster.
Wow. My goodness. 500 books a year. That's insane. I guess that's so I've heard him I've heard a handful of nicknames. Of course, the book with legs, I've heard him referred to as uh
He was going to be 100 on January 1st.
oh my goodness. Oh,
And it
oh.
hurt more because I knew he was dying at the shareholder. Like, of course he's dying. We're all dying. I was very emotional at the meeting because it seemed as though they were foreshadowing his death in the introductory video when they were playing every year back of the two of them on stage together answering questions around what happens when you and Charlie die. And he was at one point he was just so old. And of course it was my first time there. I thought he was dying on the stage, for God's sakes. I was emotional at the gathering.
Oh man.
But he's made it this far. 99. He died on November 28th, 2023. And of course, handful of others. Brad Brad said, he's yeah. A lot of love back. I got texts like he got more time than most. Don't feel bad. I bet he had more time than you and I will get.
That's- and I don't know if that does that help someone deal with death. I mean, it's listen, I'm my whole experience about death is it's weird and it's weird and I understand it to have a close relationship with someone who's been so impactful and someone like where like it's like you feel like Charlie's like the uncle who says what's ever on his mind, you know exactly what he's saying, so you feel close to him, you feel like they're like a connection, Charlie and Warren's personality really, really well because they put it out there. They talk. It's funny. I said, "Oh, well, I'm gonna prepare for the Culture Matters podcast. I'm gonna find a quote about culture." He never talks positively about culture. It's always that when he talks
Ooh,
about
you
it,
should read
he
some of those. That's good, actually.
yeah. So it's basically if you go into it, it is all about negative culture. If I'll pull up actually, I wasn't going to read it because I just thought it was is like it's like this is not we're about not bad culture, but basically what and this I think does this exemplifies it okay, the general culture of investment banking has deteriorated over the years. We did a $6 million deal years ago for diversified retailing. We were rigorous and intelligently screened. The bankers cared and wanted to protect their clients. The culture is now anything that could be sold for profit will be. Can you sell it? Is the moral test. That's not an adequate test. And I mean, and all the other quotes are basically, Charlie, complaining about the decline in culture, and that we're seeing, and that profit should not be the the only merit on what you judge success of a business.
And him dying is the nail in the coffin. Now the culture's dead. The business
Oh
culture.
God.
The business culture has lost its conscience.
Oh my goodness. Oh jeez. That's
So
this is why
hell,
you are so impacted by this. Culture has just died. Oh my goodness.
I'm distraught.
Oh my goodness. I get it. I so do you think that so do you think out of the two between Warren and Charlie that Charlie was the more conscious person focusing on culture, and Warren is more of the profit focused?
I think both profit focused. I think both people oriented. I think complement the complementarity comes from Warren being single handedly focused on his genius zone, which is not to say that Charlie isn't numerically inclined, but financials, reading reports, studying businesses, and outside of that, playing. I think what's that damn game they play? Is it backgammon? Oh no, it's not backgammon. I'm embarrassed to say that I can't. I just lost the game. But and Charlie be more so could be coined as more of a polymath, a
Hmm.
student of many disciplines. I would attribute the it's almost like if you picture a circle, in the middle of the circle there's Warren going insanely, this is what it appears to be, at least very insanely deep as it relates to the financials of businesses, and Charlie kind of circling him in the humanities and being a feedback loop for, hey, what do you think about this? I think maybe earlier in the relationship, as they've aged, they've said in the past that they talk less, but they at one point they were talking multiple times a day, constantly, and like, I could imagine Warren sitting there, um, physically turning every page, as they say. Robert Caro just said that in the book Working. He was the author of The Power Broker. He says, turn every page, was his professor's advice to him. Read every page. See Warren reading every page. That report, whatever those reports are. And when he has a thought, an idea, he's having a dialogue with Charlie, and he's going to get an unadulterated version of the truth.
Hmm.
And that combination of each in their genius zone, um, each caring about profit, each caring about people and how people work, revealing their characters, revealing the current state of the culture. Right? They talk about these. You want people that have three things: integrity, intelligence, and energy. You don't want them to have two of the three. If they have energy, intelligence, and no integrity, they'll kill you. If they have energy and integrity and no intelligence, they'll kill you.
Unintentionally, at least.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so on, right? You want those three things. So I think they both care about profit. I
Yeah.
think example of where it seems as though Charlie foreshadowed the brands in the future when he was more bullish on the idea of buying great companies at a fair price than fair companies at a better price. Maybe misquoting that, but essentially, it's better to buy something good for more than something bad at way less. Um, that kind of foreshadowed, I think, the power of brand. See's
Yeah.
Candies a big example, Coca-Cola a big example, and Warren was taught under the Ben Graham school, profiting on the buy. Not to say that they don't do that, that they haven't been able to accomplish that in many, many, many ways. So my answer would be it's both, but the order matters to them. And the fact that we have to make profit and the people have to do their jobs and be in an environment where leadership doesn't swing too far on the pendulum right or left. I'm not saying necessarily like politically right, as in overly conservative, and left as in overly progressive in a
Yeah.
business sense. Right, meaning left be like overly and over invested into the future, and too far right is like under invested into the future of the business. So that's that. What are your thoughts? What springs to mind in that explanation?
I mean, to me, like profit is just one indicator of a company's future success. It's I think that's really what it comes down to. It's and
But it depends what kind. Charlie's been said to say EBITDA is bullshit earnings.
really interesting. What's the I,
EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization.
yeah, this is
And
this is the
he'll
money that
say,
business owners get to spend. This is like, to me, that's the way I look at it. It's but I guess it is a short-term gauge of a company's health.
yeah, because if you think, I believe the reason he says bullshit earnings is because of ad backs and various things that one can do.
Yeah.
That the question is, what's really left over? Like, what are we actually working with here? And how operationally sound is the management? There's this whole psychological, sociological, anthropomorphic, and I mean these words like anthropomorphic, how how group dynamics occur, psychological, who's at the
Right.
helm of the organization, sociological, um, the overlay of the human relationships. He's coming from this deep historical human understanding. He has these 2 dozen plus cognitive biases he outlined in his book, Charlie Munger's Almanac, that has been talked about and talked about. It's just about different bias, human bias. So he's looking more, at the EBITDA as ways that they're manipulating. The no, what is it? Mark Twain, figures lie and liars figure. Figures lie and liars figure. So, what's actually left over? How operationally efficient is the business? How prepared, how prudent is the management? How self-aware is the management?
How invested is the management?
Yeah, are they working for the company or are they working for themselves?
Yeah.
And do they know that? And are they aware that the inherent bias of management is that they're working for themselves? Unless they are aware that they likely are. So, I mean, it is, that would be EBITDA.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's neat. EBITDA has a snapshot that can be manipulated by management to achieve that EBITDA. If you're looking for a multiple of EBITDA, so you know what you need to do to make it so that that year or that quarter produces the right EBITDA. So yeah, it does. It's when you hear most business or a lot of businesses evaluated on EBITDA, it's weird to hear someone say that EBITDA is bullshit. But man, I get that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of some of that is his thoughts on passing the bag. if I'm not invested in who's buying my company that I'm selling,
Yeah.
I may do things. I may be incentivized to do things that are short term oriented that help me in the short term and those that I feel benefit from me being helped in the short term. So, you know, what are the consequences of getting a little bit more in the short term if it means that someone else gets a lot less in the long? And that's that culture he's talking about. Our culture, is rooted in the neighbor. Instead of love your neighbor, fuck your neighbor. Who cares? That's the business culture's digression. What are the consequences of that? Feel like we're a bunch of kids in a sandbox about to get our toys taken away. So Charlie's dead. And what this means, it's just like a giant metaphor for the next 10 years.
Cheers to the end of culture. Thankfully, we have Culture Matters to save culture into because he doesn't have to die. All of his thoughts are out there.
Yeah.
He's got the Mungerites, right? That's what you refer to yourself and the other Charlie Munger disciples.
I don't know if there's an actual term, but of course that comes to, and I wouldn't even want to tarnish him by associating it. It sounds almost like the Strattonites, those awful people. Yeah. I've heard Munger isms, but I don't know if there's a cultural term for the Munger heirs. To speak to what you just said, though, I mean, you know, they'll be shifting the plates. I'm excited to see, first of all, the outpouring, I'm sure, of love at the next shareholder meeting, either the end of April or the beginning of May of 24 that I'll be attending. I'm excited to see that. Um, it's bittersweet because, there's some truth to in the passing of the elder, the new leadership arise, right? So this gathering that happens every year, there's many other gatherings that have been inspired by the annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting. It'll be interesting to see what in the next handful of years becomes, if if in the next decade or two there becomes not necessarily a gathering to replace the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholder meeting, although that will really to be dependent on the novelty, the entertainment, education, the interest that's still there when both are gone, both Charlie and I got to say that the other CEOs that are taking over for them cannot. It seems like they're very good at their jobs, but they can't hold a candle to their personality brand, personal brand, and or their ability to put on a show, as they say.
Yep.
I don't see those numbers staying in the 40,000s.
So
A lot of new leaders are going to rise up, I think, to have communities and get people together. And
so have you watched a lot of shareholder meetings?
I watched them all that were available on YouTube.
So and what's the earliest that you've seen?
I think 86.
86. And was the dynamic going back to 86 between Charlie and Warren similar to a way it was in the last one? Does it seem that time stops?
Yeah, their dynamic is genuine. It's I mean,
Interesting.
they get even in their old age, they're still spry and cogent, sharp. They you can see, I mean, yeah, 86 is 14 and 37, 38, 37, 38 years. It's funny. They're old there in 86, but they're not mega old.
No,
Man, they had a lot of energy in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's
in
it's
'90s.
exciting.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
incredible. I can't believe
even
it.
Warren's starting to look like he's slowing slightly, but yeah, they're unbelievably energized and self-motivated. I think they complement each other well too because Warren's so single-mindedly working on Berkshire. You know, he's the CEO chairman still of this one company that just so happens to be a holding company of dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of companies that have, subsidiaries, which have subsidiaries, which have subsidiaries. And Charlie, much smaller, fairly insignificant net worth in the 1.5 to 2.5 billion range, having given away a lot of his shares as well, and had his hands in all sorts of different things, even financially backed other Warren types like Lee Lu.
Really interesting.
So yeah, if you go back to the shareholder meetings, which why are they good to watch? Warren says, if you want to be a better business person, study investing. If you want to be a better investor, study business.
Hmm.
I don't see a downside learning the language of the street, learning the language of microeconomics and business, basic financial language. Just makes someone better. We live in an economic society. I'm not the same person when I didn't study that type of stuff. So yeah, to answer your question, I mean, they're they're pretty much who they are, is what it appears to be. And I'm fairly sure they met in their 30s, early 30s.
When Charlie was a practicing lawyer at the time, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So to come all this way, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think? You
I mean, listen, I was shocked more than anything that he was 99 years old. I couldn't believe that. I mean, I see people, in their 70s and 80s, heck, in their 60s, that aren't as sharp as as Charlie was. And so much of what him and Warren do is it's live. Like there's no, you know, um, they don't do takes. You can do multiple takes of the shareholder meetings, so the fact actually that they were able to perform at such a high level, I think is a reminder of the importance of keeping that brain going,
Hmm.
and constantly, I mean, 500 books, my goodness. I'm that in itself amazes me. I don't understand. And that's 500. I'm gonna bet that's like reading, not listening, like reading 500 physical books. I mean, how you can do that, and I'm that's just beyond me. And something actually that kind of reminds us, we want to keep our minds sharp as a tack. We need to, to continuously feed our mind.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he. I mean, there's a lot of ways to approach a book, but I'm pretty sure that he's not. There's different types of skimmers. There's skimmers that don't understand what they're skimming, and there's skimmers that get it and they've got it. And I think he's the latter, and not being attached to, all right, I got to finish this book. That's a novice learner, but a master is looking for the answer to the equation, and the books they're just a means to an end. I think that's he falls more so into that camp, just devouring, looking for that next. It's like pulling out a very thin paper and stacking these thin little papers on top of one another. So you might have this like 2-inch book. Imagine taking just one paper out of it and just stacking that to the left in a pile of those little papers. Got to go through all these big, thick volumes to get that pile to the left, those little thin papers stacked up over time. Yeah. So that's how I envision him going through that copious amount of, not necessarily reports. Not to say that he didn't do a heck of a lot of that. I believe that he did. Warren is more so into that. He's reading everything he can get his hands on of all sorts of everything. Almost like there's just there's order in the chaos, but there's no order, is what it appears to be. But it's like putting together the mosaic of the human condition, reading all these different types of things, and they fit each other like a glove in this business partnership. Pretty amazing.
Up close, you don't know what it is, but when you take a step back and view it from afar, you see this masterpiece.
Yeah, I think the listeners can take away that if you put time in to a couple pages a day of some things you're interested in, be surprised what you could get through from a content standpoint. Let Charlie be an inspiration for that, because someone that just was a curious learner has impacted generations of business people just by being that person. So what could our audience take away from that? I mean, just do something.
Yep.
Start.
I mean, every day. I mean, every day to read. Listen, I'm now like laughing at my minimum of 10 minutes a day reading that I require myself to do. I see 500 books a year. I'm like, oh my gee, and that's and 500. That's audio books, physical books, which as you and I have talked, it's there's
I
actually a
don't think
lot.
he did audio.
What's that?
I don't even think he knows what audio is.
I know, I know. I mean, what could that have
But I don't
been
know.
actually? Because if I mean, you and I have talked about how the mind processes audio better than it does reading text. So man, what happens actually when the next Charlie Munger discovers audiobooks?
Ah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, we're all so different, right? And I think each person listening to this has to uncover what their genius is. I'll tell you this. Maybe this could inspire somebody. It's 4:38 in the morning, East Coast time. We decided to film this podcast early in the morning. Man, I got my trainer in 7 minutes. I got to race downstairs to this hotel and get ready to get beaten down like a dog by my, Charlie-esque person in the fitness realm. And then more reading and listening, podcasting to happen. Andrew, thanks for meeting me this early to talk about this. Few would and fewer could. Final thoughts?
so I think my final thoughts is first off, um, make sure your loved ones know you love them. Life is short. I mean, okay, not in the case of Charlie, was not short. But it just no matter how long. I mean, we wanted at least 100 years out of him. So I think that's number one. And number two, however much you're reading, you need to do more. I know I need to do more, because I would like to have a mind that's, a fraction as sharp as Charlie when I'm in my elder years. God willing, please, that I make it to 99 and beyond, hopefully. But yeah, feed the mind.